We are on section 4.3, and I would like in this video to talk about both muscular and section 4.4 nervous tissue. So again, remind yourself of the four tissue types. We talked about connective. This video we're going to do muscle and nervous, and then we'll do epithelial in the next video. So distinguish among the three types of muscles with regard to location and function in the body. So we already talked about that muscles are quite unique because they're contractile tissue. The cells can actually contract and move parts of our bodies. Muscle cells are kind of weird. If you look right here, you can see these great big long fibers, and these are quite large compared to other cells we've looked at. And each one of these dots is a nucleus. So what you can see here is that the muscle fibers are actually many cells that have kind of merged together. So there's lots of nuclei because lots of cells form to make this. So muscle cells are actually called muscle fibers. And there's three different kinds of muscle tissue. There's smooth muscle tissue, and smooth muscle tissue, let me just back up. If you look right here, you notice that these muscle fibers look like they have lines in them. Those are called striations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Again, if you take a more advanced class, you'll learn more about that. But those are actually created by the muscle proteins that slide along each other to cause contractions. And so these striations. So smooth muscle is called smooth because it doesn't have those little lines called striations. But what I want you to know is smooth muscle tissue is found in our organs. And it's found in things like our esophagus, the tube that carries food from our throat to our stomach. Our stomach moves and churns up food because it has smooth muscle. Our intestines move and move food along that has smooth muscle. And so any kind of organ movements that we don't control are carried out by this smooth muscle. So here it says smooth muscle has involuntary control. You can't tell your stomach to move, or you can't tell it to stop moving, to contract. So we say that's involuntary. So the first of three types of muscles, smooth muscle, it's found in your organs, and it's got under involuntary control. The second muscle type is called cardiac muscle, and cardiac sounds like heart, and it's exactly what it is. It's the kind of muscle found in heart. And so it's a unique kind of muscle. And if you look at these pictures, you're not going to be experts at telling these apart, but you notice it looks different than the skeletal muscles, and this one I'm showing you right here. So you can tell them apart under the microscope, but it is a unique kind of muscle that's found in the heart, and that also is under involuntary control. You can't just sit there and go, okay, heart, move faster. We can do things to make our heart move faster and slower. We can exercise and make it faster, or we can do breathing exercises to help it slow down. But we don't have ultimate voluntary control. We would say the heart, the cardiac muscle, and the smooth muscle are both under involuntary control. And then our skeletal muscle, which is what most people think of when they think of muscles, and that's what I'm showing you right here. That's the muscle that we do have voluntary control over. We can choose to move those muscles, and those are the ones that move our bones. So when you think of muscles, you're probably thinking of skeletal muscle. Let's see. Yeah, so you can look at these. We didn't really talk about how muscle can contribute to homeostasis, but we're going to talk about homeostasis in the next, before this chapter is over. So maybe you can come back to that and see if you can figure that one out. Okay, here we are, 4.4. Distinguish between neurons and neuroglia and identify the basic parts of a neuron in a diagram. So in this chapter 4.4, we're talking about nervous tissue. And actually we do a lot in lecture on nervous tissue. So I'm just going to give you a really basic introduction to nervous tissue. Remember, nervous tissue allows parts of the body to communicate through electrical impulses. And there's two different kinds of cells in nervous tissue. There are neurons, or two big groups of cells. There's neurons, And the neurons are the actual cells that actually conduct electrical impulses. And if you look at, here's one that you could see under your microscope if you were in a live class, but here's a cartoon of that same cell. And they're kind of weird looking cells because they actually, so this part looks like a normal cell. We call that the cell body. But the cell body has these branches coming off called dendrites and one long branch called an axon, and then some other stuff that you'll learn when we do nervous system. But so if the neuron is conducting impulses, think about, you plug a cord into the wall. The electricity is only going to run one way. It's going to go from the plug to your apparatus that you've plugged in. So neurons are the same way. The dendrites actually receive information. They're stimulated, and then the neuron converts that sensory information into an electrical current, and that electrical current carries down the axon. So the dendrites receive stimulus, and the axon carries an impulse away from the axon to another cell. For example, if I want to move my arm, there are neurons that connect into my spinal cord and receive the information from my brain that says move, and then this long axon can attach to the muscle. So this part's in the spinal cord and this part's in your muscle. Neurons are some of our longest cells we have in the body because this axon can extend all the way from your spinal column all the way to your foot. So these can be really long cells. So neurons conduct the electrical impulses. Neuroglia do not conduct electrical impulses, but what they do is they just support the neurons in different ways. And when we look at nervous system, when we do that whole chapter, I'll give you examples of what some neuroglia can do. But you think they might not be that important, but they're absolutely critical for normal function of the nervous system. And there's probably more neuroglia than there are neurons in our nervous system. So they're quite important. And there are some questions. And I'm going to end this video right here, and we'll do the next video on epithelial tissue.